I don't know what the right answer is to this particular problem, and it is probably the reason why I just simply say do your best. And that is this idea that many of us believe or have high hopes that we are going to become an Olympian, or that's kind of the running joke that we often see, my wife and I often see, is that when you go into, we've got kids that are in tweens and teens, and the number of parents that think that their kids are going to go to become an Olympian or make it to the pros. It's really interesting to sort of see this, or getting a college scholarship. That's their ticket to getting their kid into college, is through some sort of sports scholarship. And I'm reminded by thinking, like, dude, your kid's not going to become an Olympian. And this is the tricky thing, that I don't know what the right answer with this, right? I think there is a moment that for many individuals, that if you did train more, if you did put in the effort, if you devoted your time and effort, that you could become competitive at the college or Olympic level. But it requires this trade-off, I think, that you're playing some really terrible odds. So this trade-off is that you have to dedicate a tremendous amount of your time and effort towards something that doesn't necessarily have a guarantee, right? There might be something that happens to you when you're 15 years old or 17 years old, just before you get into the big leagues, where you hurt yourself, which is statistically the right thing that's going to happen, right? That is the thing that will happen, is that you'll get into something and you won't make it. The chance of you becoming, so I swim, my kids swim, the chance of them becoming Olympic athletes is probably, 1 in a million. The odds are really stacked against you, even though in swimming, the odds are higher than, say, in baseball or football. And, that trade-off of, and this is the damn challenging thing, and I hope, I don't screw up my kids that much, but I tell them, I was like, you guys are not going to make it to the Olympics, right? In terms of a realistic view. Some of that has to do with, sometimes you can see natural talent early on, like, 8, 9, 10 years old, you start seeing some real natural talent coming out. And you can identify, like, hey, this person is pretty damn good. You do see that there is some pretty damn goodness. My kids don't have that sort of natural talent. They're mediocre at best, just like I am. And so what you have to rely on then is just sheer work effort. And you can outwork everybody else. I do believe that I think that there is an element that you can actually work everybody else and become extraordinary, right? Like that sort of Tom Brady, where you just outwork everybody else. You just keep putting in the time and effort. I strongly do believe in that. But there is a trade-off of the amount of time and effort that's actually going to take, and the dedication that you're going to take, compared to doing something that has statistically higher odds of paying off. So, the best odds by far is putting your nose in the books and getting a solid college degree, becoming a nurse, becoming an engineer, the sort of university degrees at undergraduate level that, they're 4 years in, you go to a solid school that is not necessarily like highfalutin. That's your best odds by far of having a good, solid life. And then when you go on either extreme, right, like I am going to become an Ivy League, medical doctor or whatnot. I'm going to become a neurosurgeon. I am going to become an Olympic athlete. I am, uh, I am going to become an artist, a world-class artist. All those things are pretty fringe. And statistically, you're not going to get there. It is you're thinking about probabilities at this moment. What is the likelihood that that's going to happen? Now, this is the thing that's challenging, where I started off with this conversation, is thinking about, you also don't want to crush dreams, right? Because there is that possibility that something could happen. I'm not saying it's a good possibility. Statistically, it's a pretty low possibility, but there is some opportunity that is possibly there to form, and also to just have fun in life, right? Like, a big part of life is dreaming and knowing that you could do something, knowing that, hey, I'm just going to do a little bit here, I'm going to put this little bit of effort in, and something's going to pan out. And of course, any domain that you're looking at, you dream big, right? You almost always. So, my dream, I'm learning Italian right now because we went and stayed in Italy. My dream is to speak Italian fluently, and I thought, hey, it would take 6 months, right? Like, that ain't happening anytime soon. I'm roughly about 6 months into it. And, the realization is that I still can dream. I can still keep going, right? Most people, without losing that, it's not necessarily a faith, but it's like a dream of potential, right? If I lose that, and you do kind of slow down on it, as you sort of go in terms of intensity, and becomes like a real life thing, right? It's like marriage. When you're first dating, it's so fun, it's so exciting, you're meeting and the person seems like perfect, and then you start finding flaws, you start finding like real people stuff with the other person, and then it's like, but it's the sticking with something that is actually the important stuff. It's like the till death do us part, basically, right? Like in sickness and in health. So thinking about, there's lots of times where it's just not going to feel good, and you have to keep going forward, right? And that's the belief. That's where that sort of encouraging people, and I think that's where I know it's trite. I know it's like, but just do your best, right? Like, to recognize your statistical odds, to also recognize that, you do have traits and features that are very different, right? My kids probably are mathematically inclined, so statistically they're going to do better at that, but because they struggle at reading, like me, my oldest one struggles at reading, like, it's going to taper that effect. And so you have to have 6 different things all in a row. And not only that, into having a very high chance of success in life, you probably have to check box all these other features and traits, right? Like, you probably have to be charismatic and yada 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 to increase your odds. Although that there are people that are not charismatic that are successful, and they all do well. But at the same time, those things kind of hold you back, right? Like, those are traits. So if you were to look at what I'm getting at, it's this trade-off of thinking about your potential requires a great deal of effort to get from here to there, in any area, and it requires specialization. It requires you to dedicate some time, and also a lot of talent along the way. And so you have to recognize these things and sort of, I don't like the idea of so when people say realism, they often are pessimistic, or they are just like, I'm never going to do this. But it's recognizing, you do have potential and you can do amazing things, but you know, given the odds, how the world works out, you're likely not going to get there. And, work on the fact of both becoming, competitive winners, but also being okay with the losing part. The losing part is such a hard thing for all of us to process. The winning part is always fun, but the losing part, which is more of where we actually stand, that's the hard part that we have to process. That's the stuff that we need to really work on. And I recognize that, often it's not your fault on why you actually are losing, and be okay with that. And just kind of do your thing, right? Like, it's contentment, but also an aggressive push to try to do your best every day. Recognize that there is a great deal of potential that's fun. And I think that sort of trade-off of those two sides is an important part of juggling the sort of mental game of performing, right? Of both being the best in your league and striving for the best in your league, whatever that league is, whatever that is, whatever best means, I don't know. But at the same time, it's like, having a great deal of humility and saying, I'm not that good. And I'm okay if things don't work out, and let's just kind of have fun in life. Like, that balance is such a hard thing that we all need to work on. And it's such a critical part of what we actually do in life. So, takeaways from this, really work on that sort of contentment. Really think about, how am I, because best is defined, man, you could define best in any sort of way. I could be best in my family, I could be best in the world, wherever, and best in the world is fleeting. It's best for, 6 months, and somebody else beats you, and beats your record, right? So, defining yourself and learning how to deal with that. And then also, once you do become best, learning how to step back and not defining yourself by that best, right? Learning what that humility is, understanding that you're freaking awesome no matter what you do, right? And no matter how you perform, just have fun, enjoy life. I think that's it. I think that's really thinking about how to balance this challenging tension that we all face. All right, take care and have a wonderful day.